The National Communications Network, in collaboration with the National Center for Resource Development and the Ministry of Education, present CXC in Focus, a focus on the key subject areas of mathematics and English for students preparing to write the exams.
Welcome to another program, CXC Mathematics in Focus. Lesson 23, Trigonometry. Trigonometry is a branch of mathematics that deals with the relationships between the sides and angles of triangles and with the properties and applications of the trigonometric functions of angles. In this lesson, we will determine and use the sine, cosine, and tangent ratios of acute angles in a right-angled triangle. The right-angled triangle. The picture is showing the right angle at B. Opposite B, we label that side little b, which is called the hypotenuse. C is called the base and A is called the height. Triangle ABC is a right-angled triangle. The hypotenuse is the longest side of a right-angled triangle. The side opposite the right-angle triangle, the right angle B, is the hypotenuse. Pythagoras' theorem. A right-angled triangle has the special property that the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs, that's A and C, equals the square of the length of the hypotenuse. In short, B squared is equal to A squared plus C squared. To find B, that is, from B squared to find B, we take the square root. So B is equal to the square root of A squared plus C squared. Trigonometric ratios of acute angle alpha. And notice alpha next to A on the diagram. COS, sometimes we say cos, is short for cosine. SIN, we say sine still, but it is a short way of writing sine, S-I-N-E. Tan is a short form for tangent. Cosine alpha, if you look at the diagram there for alpha, cosine alpha is equal to the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse, which is equal to AB divided by AC, which is equal to little c over little b. The sine of alpha is equal to the side opposite alpha divided by the hypotenuse, which is equal to BC divided by AC, which is equal to little a divided by little b. Tan alpha is equal to opposite, that is the side opposite alpha, which is opposite divided by adjacent. In this case, the adjacent is AB. So tan alpha is equal to BC divided by AB, which is equal to little a divided by little c. Trigonometric ratios of angles measuring 45 degrees. ABCD is a square. The length of the sides of the square is 1 unit. AC is equal to, it's AC squared is equal to 1 square plus 1 square. So AC is equal to 1 plus 1 is 2. AC is equal to the square root of 2. when we draw that diagonal on the square here, the 90 degrees is divided into two equal parts. So 90 divided by 2 is equal to 45. So the angle marked 45 degrees there, if we are asked to find the cosine of 45 degrees, cosine will be adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 1 over root 2. Sine 45 is opposite over hypotenuse, which is 1 over root 2. Tan 45 is equal to opposite over adjacent, which is 1 over 1, which will give us 1. And notice in this particular case that the cosine is equal to the sine. That is only when the angle is 45, that cosine 45 is the same as sine 45. And this is a special one for you to remember, that the tan of 45 is always 1. Triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. In an equilateral triangle, each angle is equal to 60 degrees. The perpendicular CD bisects the base AB as well as the angle at C. The angle at C is 60, so if it is bisected, you will have 30. So angle CAD and angle DCA are complementary angles, and if you remember what we said earlier, complementary angles, this sum will be 90 degrees. So we have angle CAD plus angle DCA is equal to 90 degrees. Trigonometric ratios of angles measuring 30 degrees and 60 degrees. We repeat this diagram for you. We have the length of the sides of the equilateral triangle as 2 units. So when we divide the base, the two equal parts, AD is equal to 1, DB is equal to 1. If we apply Pythagoras theorem, we will find that DC or CD is equal to the square root of 3. So the cosine of 60 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which is equal to 1 over 2, and go across to find what the cosine of 30 would be. Cosine of 30, if you look carefully at the diagram, it will be root 3 over 2. Sine 60. Sine 60 is equal to root 3 over 2. And sine 30 is equal to a half. Tan 60 is equal to root 3, and tan 30 is equal to 1 over root 3, which can be expressed as root 3 over 3. Some important points. Sine of 90 degrees minus alpha is equal to the cosine of alpha. Sine of alpha is equal to the cosine of 90 degrees minus alpha. Sine of 60 degrees is equal to the cosine of 30 degrees. Tan alpha is equal to sine alpha divided by cosine alpha. And sine alpha, from that diagram, you will see sine alpha is equal to A over B divided by the cosine of alpha, which is C over B. So A over B divided by C over B will give us A over C. Let us look at a problem taken from CXC June 2004. Given that sine alpha is equal to root 3 over 2, given that alpha is between 0 and 90, express in fractional or surd forms the value of cosine alpha. So we draw up a right angle triangle, put at A the alpha, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the side opposite alpha would be root 3. The hypotenuse would be 2. Applying Pythagoras, we will get AB as 1, and that's the calculation done there for you. So we will have then that cosine alpha is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which will work out to be 1 over 2. Here's another example. In the diagram, EFGH is a rectangle. The point D on HG is such that ED is equal to DG, which is equal in turn to 12 cm, and angle GDF is equal to 43 degrees. Calculate, correct to one decimal place, 1, the length of GF, 2, the size of angle HDE. This is a question taken from CXC June 2004. Here is the solution. That's the diagram there. To find the length GF, we use the tan function. Tan 43 degrees is equal to GF divided by 12. Cross multiplying, we have GF is equal to 12 times tan 43 degrees. Using your calculator, you would have GF equal to 11.2 cm. Part 2 of the question, that is to calculate the size of angle HDE. We are told that DG is equal to ED, which in turn is equal to 12 cm. GF is equal to EH, which is equal to 11.2 cm calculated earlier. Let alpha represent angle HDE. Then sine alpha is equal to 11.2 divided by 12. So alpha is equal to the inverse, the sine inverse of 11.2 divided by 12. And when you plug that value into your calculator, you will find that alpha is equal to 69 degrees. So we conclude that angle HDE is equal to 69 degrees. Here's your problem for today. In the diagram, EFGH is a rectangle. The point D on HG is such that ED is equal to DG equal to 12 cm and angle GDF is equal to 43 degrees. What is the length of HD? This question is taken from CXC June 2004. This is the problem given to you in the last lesson. The diagram below, not drawn to scale, shows a block of wood in the shape of a semicircular prism. The cross section of the prism is a semicircle with diameter 30 cm. The length of the prism is 1.2 meters. Use pi as 3.14. Calculate giving your answer to three significant figures. 1, the area in centimeter square of the cross section, and 2, the volume in centimeter cube of the prism. Question taken from CXC January 2004. Here is the solution. Area of the semicircular cross section is equal to half the area of a circle, that is half pi r squared. When we substitute the values, it will give us a half times 3.14 times 15 times 15, 15 being half the diameter, which is your radius, and that will give us 353.25 centimeters squared, which will be equal to 353 centimeters squared to 3 significant figures. The second part, the volume of the prism is equal to the area of the base times the height. We know the area of the base earlier, that being 353.25, and the height being 120 cm. So, the volume of the prism is equal to 353.25 times 120, which is equal to 42,390 cm cube. And we are asked to express that answer to 3 significant figures. And note the 3 significant figures there. Your answer is 42,400 centimeter cube. This brings us to the end of today's program, CXC Mathematics in Focus.
In the last lesson, we summarized 2 passages by first identifying the relevant points, then combining the points logically into summaries of specified word limits. Today, we're going to write a summary in the form of a letter. We will then review some guidelines for writing the summary. Let us suppose you have a pen friend from another country who is interested in spending vacation with you in one of our interior locations in Guyana. You have come across the following article in a local magazine and have decided that the Rupununi is the ideal place for your friend's vacation. Write a letter of about 160 words telling your friend about the Rupununi based on the information given in the article. Let's read the article and identify what is relevant for the letter. Beyond Iwokrama, in Guyana's remote southwest, lies the Rupununi Savanna, a region of dry grasslands watered by creek and ponds, divided into north and south regions by the Kanuku Mountains. Most of the year, the savanna is dry. But from May to August, the rainy season, flooding is widespread and mosquitoes are legion. October to April is the best season for visiting. Ranching is the mainstay of the Rupununi, and the small population has close links with Brazil across the border. A few cattle ranches have been converted to hotels or guest houses, and despite the isolation from the coast, these offer a surprising degree of comfort. Bedrooms with airy verandas, swimming pools, fine meals. Here too, while life is plentiful, though many species are nocturnal and hence difficult to spot. Something about the openness of the country must conduce to largeness. This is the territory of giant anteaters and giant river otters, 20-foot-long caimans, and large harpy eagles soaring overhead. Rivers and creeks offer fine swimming, but take your host's advice on where to go so as to avoid tricky encounters with those caimans. The region's major town is Letem, on the Brazilian border. Most of the time, the chief attraction here is a small Amerindian museum. But at Easter, things suddenly get more lively when hundreds of cowboys arrive from the surrounding ranches, Guyanese as well as Brazilian, for the annual rodeo. The story goes that an ex-cowpoke from Dakota by the name of Ben Hart arrived in the Rupununi in the late 19th century after an unsuccessful stint on the Amazon Railway. He held the occasional rodeo to entertain guests, and the sport gradually caught on. Let us now write a draft of the main points that your letter should contain. Rupununi is savanna divided into north and south by the Kanuku Mountains. It's important for your friend to have an idea of the terrain. Rainy season occurs from mid-May to August, so October to April is the best time for visiting. Rupununi has close links with Brazil over the border. Ranching is the main occupation. Luxurious and comfortable hotels and guest houses, fine meals and swimming pools, an abundance of wildlife, mostly nocturnal. Lethem, major town, has a Merindian museum, venue for rodeo and annual cowboy show. Since you're asked to write a letter, you must use the letter format. And because it is a friendly letter, it must have an informal tone. Let us carefully examine the following response to the question. 26 Hill Street, The Penitence, Georgetown, Guyana, May 1, 2007. Hi, Joe. I'm excited to hear that you would like to spend your vacation at one of our interior locations. Well, I've been doing some research, and I'm convinced that the Rupununi would be the ideal place. The Rupununi is savanna lands divided into north and south regions by the Kanuku Mountains. It shares a close relationship with its neighbor, Brazil. Ranching is the main occupation, and there is plenty of wildlife, which I know you have an interest in, but most are nocturnal. Joe, you need not worry about accommodation, since there are comfortable and luxurious hotels and guest houses, all of which offer fine meals. The best time to visit would be during Easter, since that is the dry season and also the time when rodeo, the annual cowboy show, is held. Joe, I can hardly wait for you to visit. Please write soon. Yours truly, Charles. Let us now examine some guidelines for writing a good summary. The first thing you should do is to read the question carefully, ensuring that you understand what it is asking you to do. Some questions may ask you to write a report for the newspaper, a friendly or formal letter, or just a plain summary. You should read the passage carefully at least twice. The first time, to have a general idea of what it is about, to see how it is organized, and to note the purpose and attitude of the writer. The second reading should be for the purpose of identifying the important and relevant points for your summary. While reading the second time, you can use a pencil to mark off the relevant points in the passage. You should also try writing these points down on a sheet of paper as briefly as possible and in your words. You may include some keywords from the passage in your list of points if necessary. When jotting down your points, you should keep the following suggestions in mind. Keep the same general order of ideas as in the original passage. Keep the same tone as the original. That is, do not change the writer's attitude to the subject. Try to substitute one word for several, a phrase or a clause for a sentence where possible. This will assist you in maintaining the word limit. Let us examine two examples. The words, "too ready to believe what they hear," can be replaced by the word "gullible." The practice of leaving one country to settle in another is becoming increasingly rampant in Guyana. The word "migrating" can be substituted for the words "leaving one country to settle in another." Check your draft of points to ensure that the same idea, perhaps in a different form, does not appear more than once. Read the passage a third time to ensure that you have jotted all the information or ideas that you need to have in your summary. Where necessary, rearrange your points to achieve a continuous flow of ideas. Write the first draft of your summary, keeping the following points in mind. Decide on the order in which you want to present your ideas. Most persons prefer to begin with the most important point. Use your own words as far as possible. Use transitional devices, link words and phrases, to combine ideas and sentences so as to present your summary as a unified and coherent whole. Linking ideas and sentences also helps to reduce your number of words. Here are some examples of linked words and phrases that you can use in your summary. If you want to signal an effect resulting from a cause, you can use such expressions as consequently, as a result, thus, hence, so, therefore. If you want to prepare the reader for a new point, you can make use of such expressions as in addition, furthermore, moreover, besides, also. To indicate a contrast, you can use such expressions as however, on the contrary, on the other hand, yet, nevertheless, but, in contrast. Avoid unnecessary details. Omit illustrative material, examples and repetitions. State figurative language more simply and directly. Quotations should be excluded unless they are crucial to the central message of the original passage. In many cases, they are used to support a point that has already been made or to imply an idea. If it is used to imply an idea, you should state the point it infers rather than the quote. Do not include your own ideas in the summary. Check your draft to see if it is within the specified word limit. There are times when the question states a specific word limit. Example, in not more than 100 words. Then there are times when you are given an appropriate word limit. Example, in about 120 words, write. Whatever the case is, do not take word limit for granted. The examiner will not award marks for excessive writing. If your draft is far below the word limit, you have most likely omitted information that ought to be included. If your draft exceeds the word limit, try to reduce it without omitting any relevant information. In doing so, make sure that you do not leave ideas hanging. Ensure that your sentences are complete and your grammar is correct. Remember, the main objective of summary writing is to express the essential meaning of a larger body of information. It must be clear and precise without changing the emphasis of the original passage. Warning: some students preamble before getting to the point. There is no need for preambling. Get to the point quickly. Boys and girls, on behalf of the team, Bibi Ali, Parmeshwar Lal, and Ron Chichester, I'm Ingrid Fong, saying thank you for viewing.
The National Communications Network, in collaboration with the National Center for Resource Development,